So I'm just we have a little introductory slide up here that we are being joined by Nat Way, who is in the House of Lords. And we're just really grateful for the time that you're giving to us today because we know you must be very, very busy. So thank you so much. And thank you very much for everything you've been doing in the home, for home educators in the House of Lords. We know that that must be really challenging um, because there are so many dissenting voices as well. So you're a homemade dad yourself, right?
Yeah, just this last summer, my two boys, uh, well, we finished home educating formally with the eldest having previously gone to sixth form already. He just did his A levels, and then the youngest just finished his GCSEs, and he's now going
Okay.
to
So you're
do
coming to the
dance.
end of your journey?
Yeah, they're both now in sixth form as of Monday,
Oh,
or post sixth
fantastic.
form. Yeah, in one
Yeah,
case.
fantastic.
Yeah.
And oh, there was something else going. I just had on the YouTube feed where people are commenting when we had Matt come in with the streams team. Somebody said, "Oh, yay, a dad!" And very happy to see some dads coming in. So it's really good to have you in.
I think
Um,
more credit does need to go to my wife who did most of the heavy lifting. I mainly provided the Duber, I call it the daddy Uber, and a lot of the funding.
It's very important because that's free, there's as a dad, I think there's different roles you play. The one could be that you're very active like Matt, but an equally important is freeing up your wife if she's going to be the one doing the home educating and making it easy for her to
Mm.
to not have to worry about all the other bits.
Yeah, I remember reading a book about home ed a few years ago, which highlighted how stressful and how much work it is for the lead sort of home ed spouse or partner. And that really helped me to be available. My work is pretty full time too. So you kind of you get home and you're sort of like, I want to rest here, but actually you then have to get your overalls off and get another bunch on, don't you?
Yeah.
And support your spouse
Well,
and
yours
help
is pretty
them
full
rest.
on because you're getting communication from people all the time as well. You're not really able to shut it off, are you?
Yeah, I guess that's true of home ed too, in a way, right? The conversations never stop, the learning never stops. Um, but yeah, it's I think especially when you're in the media eye, you never know what will turn up. So
Yeah,
you have
that's
to
very
develop a thick
true.
skin.
That's
Yeah.
very, I'm sure you do. And, I'm sure you didn't home educate all those years if you didn't believe there was something in it.
Yeah, I think the journey for us began in East London. Our boys went to a cooperative creche. I'm a big fan of cooperative hubs in education. Um, and where the parent would give one or both would give a morning or an afternoon a week, and you'd pay a lot less compared to full-time nurseries. And at one point I did try to get a minister in my party in government to try and roll out such a scheme because they do it. I think in France it's the de facto way of caring for children, but it gave us a taste of, oh, we can do this. And my wife, who had been a teacher, but suddenly she could see the potential. She wanted them to learn Cantonese, which you can't easily do because especially the writing on a Saturday. So to be able to blend that into kind of a broad education was a real attraction. So it sort of began from there really. That um, I think it was a good experience. Sadly in COVID, lots of parents got to experience. I wouldn't call it home ed what they had. It just happened to be school education at home. But it's funny when you give people a taste of it, they then that shapes their understanding for better or worse. But for us, it was a great experience.
Yeah, I think for some people a little light bulb went off for them during that time. For other people, it was like, oh, I don't ever want to do this again. So there was a bit of a mix.
Yeah, and I think it varied depending on what work the school gave the child.
And if you're trying
Um,
to do school at home.
yeah, yeah. In fact, and to tell you an interesting story, and I hope my eldest son doesn't mind me sharing this. I don't think it's too bad. When he first started sixth form, because he'd never been to school before, You have to get used to all the kind of work that you're sent by this, in this case, a very good local school to us in London. And he hadn't read from the intranet portal that there was an extra piece of homework for maths A level before they started A levels, which takes the whole of the summer to do normally. And we
That's
found out sort of 9 p.m. the day before he was about to start school. So I stayed up until, this is probably the one of the contributions beyond just the driving that I did until about 1 or 2 p.m. Using ChatGPT, not to give him the answers, but to give him the questions that he would need to sort of think about
yeah,
that would guide him to think through a bit like, because he'd done a lot of maths at GCSE. So what do you need to remember? What's the question you need to ask to get to the next stage? And so there's a whole set of sort of sheets like that. And he managed to get it done by 7, and he woke up very early, got it done by about 7 in the morning, and kind of managed to do it. It's an essay crisis. Don't want to do that again, but it's interesting that the work you're given sometimes it's a bit sink and swim,
yeah.
and then if you can cope, that's fine. But sometimes other kids need a bit more, as we found, all of us, I think, to find their own path. So
I think the interesting thing with the education system is that, well, look, we know it's missing the mark in just so many ways. But in terms of this preparation for GCSEs, is that like one of my daughters, she wanted to have a few more GCSEs. So some of them she only started preparing for in the February
yeah,
before the exam. And she passed. I won't say she did outstandingly well, but she did demonstrate that it was quite possible that you didn't need 2 years to prepare to write this exam and still
yeah,
pass.
yeah,
Which it was an interesting experiment, really. Um,
yeah. I do think exams for us, a lesson learned, it suddenly hits you, and the whole tone and tenure of the home education shifts the moment you're having to get ready for those GCSEs, or even 11 plus if it's earlier, if you're going down that route. And so when I have younger now, millennial friends who have babies who are now contemplating home education, I go, great, really enjoy it. There are many different philosophies and ways of doing it. But when they hit a certain age, you know, 2 years before any kind of exam they need to do, have a quick look
yeah.
and start
Well,
getting them ready.
yeah.
Because otherwise you do end up, it becomes like big in a cog in a machine, doesn't it? And
Yeah, and I
you
think
want to,
for me it
yeah,
was about giving my children the support they needed to know how to write the exam, what was
mm,
expected of them. But certainly they could, I found in the primary years, let them have as much fun, make as many happy memories, and
yeah.
just play a lot and enjoy reading and that kind of thing. But when they get older, you can become a little bit more focused. And
Mm,
my
Can I
children
just
chose
interject
their
a little
own.
bit here? Because I home educated from the get go with my son, who's now 28. And what we did was we spread those GCSEs out over
yeah.
quite a number of years. And it takes away that massive launching into that whole new era if you're just drip feed. So he did maths 3 years early, for example, because that was his best subject. So he started with the maths and he got an A, and that gave him the boost to carry on.
Yeah.
So he never did more than 3 GCSEs at a time, which was good for him because it didn't overload him. And we could just drip feed that, and at the same time, he could have the rest of his life still as normal.
We did that too. We spread ours over about 5 or 6 years, I think, all in all. Um, but I still think it's a shifting of gear, no matter,
It is.
if you do 3 or 8 or 10,
Yeah.
there's a shifting of gear that you're not always prepared for. And I
Mm.
think it's interesting. Many years ago, I was in one country speaking to some very senior policy makers in education, and we were talking about neuro development, the children's brains.
Mm-hmm.
It was really interesting. We kind of half jokingly concluded it'd be great to have in every country home education or Scandinavian style education until at least 7 or 8, and then more Chinese or Asian style from 8 to 12, British boarding school from 12 to 18, and an American university from 18 to
Mhm.
25. Because basically, not in every case, but on average, your brain wants to play until you're 8, and then you're good at
Yeah.
memorizing from 8 to 12, and then you're trying to find out what are you good at even if it's rugby or,
Yeah.
you know, from 12 to 18. And then from 18 to 25, your brain stops, most of the growth stops at 25. You kind of want to know what's my role in the world.
Yeah.
And actually,
Yeah.
each of our systems has strengths.
Yeah.
But we, you know, depending on who the education minister and what they found beneficial of those different types, they impose it on everyone else,
Yeah.
all the way through, preferably.
Yeah. Because we don't have a lot of time, I want to
Yeah,
just address specifically, just your role, in the House of Lords. Uh,
yeah,
that uh, those voices are so important because we're in a very difficult position right now in government where we have such a majority that our chances of getting amendments and that kind of thing has been really, really difficult. And, would you like to comment on that? I don't know how to guide that particularly because,
yeah,
would you like to share anything about that with us?
yeah. I'll say this that as you said, it is tough. There's very, very little support. I'm probably only one or maybe two in the entire place, both houses, possibly, who opposes the register, full stop. Everybody else is sort of, well, let's have it, but sort of be a
In
little
some
less
form. Yeah.
draconian in, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and there are lessons to be learned there, but I'll separate the where we are in the process and what we can do, before, God forbid, we have an act and the enforcement of that. And then I'll talk about what do we do moving forwards, because you've got to often in politics play both. I think part of the lesson maybe we as community need to learn is, we've seen this coming quite a number of years away, but did we really mobilize, the wonderful protests and all the things that people were doing? Um, Obviously, as home editors, we're very busy. Finances are constrained, and we all do our own thing. Everybody has a slightly different take. That's the whole point of home ed, right? But there are things like times like this when it would have been helpful to have united and mobilized earlier. And now we know. I don't think it's completely too late, but looking back, I think, if you look at America, they have an amazing home ed kind of movement that has lobbyists, full-time paid people that are winning over more than two peers and zero MPs. We could get much more support if we actually, each gave £5 a month, one for that infrastructure, and then another £5 a month for the insurance to fight the legal cases that we're going to have to fight, right? So I think I and others are kind of thinking about, can we come together, put aside some of the differences that might be there, even between those that support the register a little bit and those that are very opposed. There's still a lot of common ground there to kind of speak. And so I think, we're coming from a place of, and a lot of what I've had to do is try and get them to stop and think before they rush things through. And you can see I had a few cheeky ones about chess players, but I was trying to make a very serious point, is that you literally haven't thought through. You're cookie cuttering everyone, including parents that might in future want to home ed. So can you just, have a bit of nuance here? And so far, we've had a few, I mean, I was proud last week. I wasn't available to attend myself, but Lord Lucas was speaking on my behalf, that at least they're going to destroy the data of the children at 18. That's a small, small victory,
Mm.
but it shows what you can do if you push hard enough,
Mm.
and if enough us push hard enough. So the other thing to note is that it can still be slowed down even after it becomes an act, because they've got to go through consultation, put out the guidance. The guidance has to be in line with the legal, European Court and all the other sort of frameworks. And then don't even get me started on the IT systems they're going to have to build to make this work and how long that's going to take. So, realistically, I know there are many local authorities already sort of pretending it's in power and threatening parents. And, I'm standing with you in that. And you should remind them that it isn't yet law, hasn't yet been implemented, and make noise about and let us know and let the media locally, and, because I think your biggest ally is going to be the parent who is a bit worried that if their child is going to need to be taken out of school, the council might say, well, the very fact you want a home ed, we're going to start an investigation, and then we'll tell you no. When those guys are alongside you, home ed is not electorally strong enough on its own. But with parents, other parents, every other parent in the country, we could win quite significant battles in the short and medium and long term. So what that leads to is, whatever happens with this bill, And as we start to get our act together for the future fight, don't think this is over. This is just the beginning, right? That we may get to a point where very little of it is implemented in full by the next election.
Mm.
And as you know from the events this week, there's very likely going to be a change of government in the next election. And no matter what you think of the people that might be leading the next government, they're the ones now that we have to convince that home ed is great and that needs less, not more kind of regulation, or at least, if any, then ones that can allow us to get on with our home education. So again, putting aside any qualms you might have, if you know people locally who are leaning towards reform or who are, in that social media battle, they're really good at that, get alongside them, sort of for the
Start
sake of our
influencing.
children.
Yeah.
And then even on the hard left, bizarrely, when we were doing forest school in Northeast London, there were Corbynite families, learning how
Yeah.
to start fires, as well as Marxism. So you'd be surprised the kind of allies who have real
Yeah.
leverage. It's great
My
to write
MP is
letters.
Zara Sultana, so
There you go. It's great to write letters. It's great
yeah,
to
it'd be great if
protest.
she
But
answered. Yes.
the real leverage is those loud voices on social media who are winning
Yeah.
electorates over. That's the
Yeah.
guys we need to win over.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, thank you so much for everything you're doing. And just we applaud that, and we're very much just behind you. I think as long as they're not going to fix up the education system, we're in real trouble. If because they're not addressing the very real issues or thinking out of the box in any way. And I think if we knew they were going to actually improve the system, I think people would
Yeah.
would maybe be a little bit more cooperative and not
Yeah.
so
SEND support.
yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's so many other countries that are doing a great job that we could be looking at, and we don't. And yeah, but
Yeah.
thank you so much for joining us. I know your time is precious,
Thank
and
you.
we really appreciate it. And we do have our warrior Michelle, who's very much on top of everything. We're very thankful for her, and I know she's taking on board everything you're saying as well. So
Great.
anyway, enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.